What is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. I hope everyone is doing extremely well. Not doing super well, and I think everyone can obviously easily understand why. But yeah, what is going on, everyone? I hope everyone is doing extremely well. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in today's stream. Obviously, we are going to be going over the New York Mets and Toronto Blue Jays series summary, and pretty much summarize and recap. I like to say the good, the bad, and the ugly, but really just the bad and the ugly. Not much good to take from it. And then, of course, we are going to transition into the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves series preview, which, boy, I'm excited for that series, 100%. So, yeah, we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, everyone, please smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, tell your friends about this channel. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Just be patient, of course, because I will be going over a couple of things, obviously a little bit of a rant. So if you could hold off your comments, questions for a little bit later in the stream, but I'm not going to prevent you guys from commenting if you so please. So yeah, I guess let's stop wasting any more time and getting into it. The New York Mets had a very rough series against the Blue Jays, and they didn't win a single game, so good for fucking them. Obviously, they got swept, and I'm not very happy when I see that. Getting into game one, Friday's game, obviously, morale is high, and they just said, we're just going to lose. Well, the Mets lost 3-0. Obviously, another game that they've been shut out this year. Keep in mind, you look at last year's team. They were a team that, only got shut out a couple times. Whereas so far this year, this team has, I think, almost been shut out a handful of times. So, yeah, there's a big issue with this team, and a lot is going to be discussed. So, like I said, Mets lose game one, 3-0. You had Justin Verlander on the mound. And Verlander had a pretty good day. 6 innings, 5 hits, a run, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, 117 pitches. So, I mean, he really battled. His count wasn't really in his favor, but he battled. And overall, he played very well. Obviously, he gave up the run in the first inning, the home run to Springer. But that's kind of what we've been seeing with Verlander, and that's what you could see with Verlander through a lot of his career. He always shits the bed in the first inning, gives up a run or two, and then he's, essentially, Cy Young for the rest of it. So, like I said, Verlander pitched well. I mean, just one inadequate pitch to Springer, and otherwise, he kept the Mets in the ballgame. Dominic Leone came in, an inning, strikeout, pretty clean and quick outing. Drew Smith came in, an inning, a hit. And then, of course, Buck Showalter with his genius bullpen management goes to Jeff Brigham in a 1-run situation. But Brigham says, we're going to decrease our odds at winning. Brigham, an inning, 2 hits, 2 runs, and, of course, strikeout. So, he's not a good high-leverage situation guy. Why does Buck Showalter, make some of these bullpen decisions? Well, that's a great question. And, we've been seeing that this bullpen has been very overtaxed for a lot of this season. And, they're going to need to figure something out. So, like I said, the pitching, held down the fort. but it's your offense didn't do anything. They didn't score a single run. You got 4 hits, one from McNeil, one from Alonso, one from Marte, and one from Canna. You had a good pitch perfect opportunity. I think it was in the 5th inning or the 6th inning. You had runners on the corners, no outs, and you didn't drive them in. Sack fly could have brought him in. Anything could have happened. But no, Lindor decided to strike out, and then Alvarez with an inadequate double play. So yeah, I mean, things like that, cannot deal with that. You need to play better. Point blank simple. So yeah, Verlander gets his 3rd loss on the season, and just the Mets could not hit against Chris Bassitt. They made Chris Bassitt the guy who, they had last year look like a Cy Young player. And listen, when it comes to Chris Bassitt, it's good to see him, face the Mets, of course. But when it comes down to Chris Bassitt, a lot of Mets fans were very negative on him going into this offseason. And if I could say, Bassitt was one of the few Mets pitchers last year who was consistent. He went out there every 5th day, and you knew what you were going to get out of him. An average 6 innings, 2 or 3 runs. That's workable. I mean, I would ask any of my pitchers, if I'm a manager or coach, to put up those numbers. And of course, we know what happened with Bassitt. He did not play well in the Braves series, and then he did not play well in the wild card. And then all of a sudden, Bassitt's horrible. He's washed. He's not good. Really, 2 series determines a pitcher. Okay. Because if that's the case, then you could say it about Scherzer. So, yeah, that is one thing that I think should be addressed. A lot of Mets fans obviously aren't super keen and, happy with Bassitt. And I understand he choked in 2 of the biggest he choked in 2 of the biggest, series for the Mets. But, it is what it is. So now getting into game 2, the Mets lost this game once again by a score of 2-run, but they decided to score a run, of course. Tyler McGill on the bump, and McGill had a really good outing. It sucks that they couldn't get him any run support, because I would say this is a lot of the old Tyler McGill. If you look at his stride, and I noticed first pitch, that stride looked much longer. He looked like that old stride from last year. Very interesting thing, if you notice, if you go back and look at McGill, he looked very similar to last year, and his fastball velocity was up a little bit. So I'm not saying, anything's official, but, maybe if McGill, maybe he's a guy that needs that stride. Maybe he plays much better with that stride. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, Brooks Raley came in for 2/3 of an inning, giving up a hit. So Brooks Raley has been, kind of your go-to guy when you're in situations. I said it in the beginning of this year, and I'm going to say it again. Brooks Raley is the type of guy that, could be like your Aaron Loop of 2021. And, I mean, it's definitely 2021 for this team because they're playing like it. But, yeah. Following that, Adam Ottavino came in, an inning and 2/3, a hit, strikeout. And then, going to the 9th, it's a tie game. David Robertson has a little bit of an outing, an inning and a third, 3 hits and a run, 3 strikeouts. He was 1 strikeout away, or 1 strike away from getting out of it, sending them into the bottom of the 9th with the tie game and a chance for them to walk it off. But, as soon as they're down 1 run, it's the equivalent of them being down, 20 runs. Like I said, the pitching held down the fort. Only 2 runs. Are you kidding me? That's phenomenal. But the offense scoring 1 run, you only had 1 run, 6 hits, countless guys left in scoring position. You could not hit with 2 outs. And the 1 run you scored was an RBI double to center from Daniel Vogelbach to bring in Starling Marte. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's an absolute joke. An absolute joke. And it's very hard to win ball games when Francisco Lindor is going 0 for 4. Pete Alonso 0 for 4. Beatty 0 for 3. So order really struggled. I mean, Nimmo went 2 for 5, McNeil 2 for 3. But, really no one else did anything. I mean, Marte, Vogelbach, and Kana got a hit each. I mean, you got no production from Nito, as per always. And then, Nito looking shitty out there defensively. So, I mean, this was just both of these games, game 1 and 2, easily winnable. But, Vlad Jr. saves the day. And, you notice in the 9th inning, The home plate umpire, I forgot who it was. Yeah, let's just say the home plate umpire's strike zone wasn't great. He was calling a lot of pitches that weren't the best in terms of accuracy. And there was one call that he made, and the Blue Jays manager, I forgot his name. It's not Montoya anymore, but he went out there and he started arguing, and he got tossed. And then what happened 20 seconds after? Well, Vlad Jr. had an RBI double down the line. He fired up his players, something that Buck Showalter cannot do. So Mets lose the game 2-1, and getting into game 3 in the final game of this 3-game set, they lose 6-4. So the one game that they decide to score 4 runs is the game they lose. If only they could have scored these 4 runs, I don't know, in game 1 or 2, you would have easily at least won one of the games. So, I mean, that's just how baseball is. It's a silly, it's crazy. But Kodai Senga, obviously, with a horrible outing, one of his worst outings of his, rookie campaign. Obviously, Kodai Senga, 2 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 runs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts. As we could see with Kodai Senga, we saw he was on short rest, 4 days rest, and is this result of it? The walks were there. We saw 5 walks in 2/3 of 2 innings. The walks are the biggest killer for him. Once Senga, starts losing command of the strike zone and starts walking batters, yeah, it is arguably panic time. And that's what we saw with Senga. He couldn't get the ball over the plate. And the few times he did, the Blue Jays were just feasting up on him. Hits, and, a lot of hard contact. So, it is what it is. I think when it comes down to Kodai Senga, listen, I understand the situation with him. He's new to the United States. He's new to MLB. He's never pitched in the major leagues before. He's pitched in the Nippon League out in Japan, and obviously it's a little bit different. The ball, and there's definitely an acclimation period, and I've said that a lot in spring training and in the off season. Right as they acquired him, I said, he's not going to be this elite Cy Young caliber player, in the beginning. I don't think anyone should think that, but right now it's getting very kind of hard because April and May, okay, you give them a honeymoon phase, a grace period. April and May, sure, but now I feel the whole rotation essentially is kind of revolving around him. He has to pitch every 6 or 7 days. He needs the extra day or two because that's how it was in Japan, and that's fine. But I think it's very hard when you have other guys in a rotation like Verlander, like Scherzer, like Carrasco, who are used to playing on 5 days rest, and MLB typical average. So I kind of feel it's that you have to accommodate Senga, but then it's also hard because then you're kind of I don't want to say essentially screwing everyone else, but then it definitely affects everyone else, I think you could say. So when it comes down to it, Senga, he's had his good outings, he's had his bad outings. I think he's had more good outings than bad. Obviously, the last 3 outings he had was very good. But I think there's definitely some concerns still for Senga. I think when it comes down to the strike zone, his command is definitely an issue, and that's something that I think should hopefully be worked on, and that's something that the Mets will work on. But yeah, and I think the other thing is just pitching. The timetable for when he's going to pitch. In April and May, that's fine, but coming into the dog days of August, we're going to need to have kind of a solution figured out because, I don't want to go a full year and it's kind of like, the honeymoon phase. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, yeah, Senga just did not have a good outing, point blank simple. Following that, Steven Nagosic came in, 3 hits, a hit, a walk, 4 strikeouts. Tip of the cap to Steven Nagosic. He had a really good outing. So tip of the cap to him, keeping the Mets in the ball game. Then as the Mets have the tie, Buck Showalter with his genius bullpen management decides to go to Dominic Leone. Well, what does he do? Dominic Leone, an inning and a third, 2 hits, 2 runs. So that's kind of how it is there. Drew Smith, an inning, 2 strikeouts. Jeff Brigham, an inning and 2 strikeouts. So the Mets pitching gives up 6 runs. They score 4 runs, 7 hits. But once again, they cannot win because, this team can never be consistent at one time. There'll be a day where, the pitching's good, but the offense is bad, or the offense is good, but the pitching's bad. And consistency is key. In terms of the offense, like I said, you scored 4 runs, 7 hits. Getting started with the offense, Tommy Pham started off the offense with a solo home run to right in the 3rd inning. Then once again, he decided to hit another home run in the 5th inning. He had a homer to left. Going on into the 6th inning, Pete Alonso had a solo home run to left, 360 feet. That was a little bit of history, as Pete Alonso officially holds the record for most home runs at Citi Field, surpassing Lucas Duda's record. So that was definitely some nice history there. And then Starling Marte, 2 bats later, has a solo home run to left. But otherwise, the Mets were not able to continue anything else, as they lost this game 6-4. Leon gets the loss. So, yeah, the Mets obviously, by no means had a really rough series against the Blue Jays at home. And, it sucks. Expectations coming into this were high. Obviously, the Mets have been playing very well at home the last couple weeks. Going in, before this weekend, they had, a 7-game win streak at home. And you were kind of hoping to carry that on. Obviously, the Mets got a little unlucky. You couldn't face Alek Manoah, or you kind of got the pretty decent part of the Blue Jays pitching staff. And, their bullpen is very good, I will say. But this Mets offense, no excuses. They fell asleep. And everyone should be accountable. Everyone from Lindor to Vogelbach to Canna. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, now that was the Mets and Toronto Blue Jays series summary, going over really the bad and the ugly. Going over now the series preview between the Mets and the Braves, which I'm not looking forward to that. Tonight the Mets are playing a 3-game set down in Atlanta, as the Mets are going to play a 3-game set in the Braves ballpark, Truist Park. The Mets coming into this are 30-30, so 500, and they're 15-18 on the road. So, the Mets are, like I said, kind of been hovering around 500 as of lately. And the Atlanta Braves have been doing pretty well, 35-24. They are 15-14 at home. So, one thing to look at with the Braves is, they've been a team who has been struggling at home a little bit, which is unusual. But, that's just how baseball works sometimes. Obviously, they took the series against the Diamondbacks, 1-2 of 3, with the Mets lost the series 0-3. They got swept against the Blue Jays. So, the Braves definitely have the high ground. They have the morale. They have the expectations going in. Obviously, game 1 tonight, 7:20 Eastern Standard Time. The New York Mets will have Carlos Carrasco on the bump. Obviously, Carrasco, 2-2 on the season, 5.74 ERA, 1.37 WHIP. But, obviously those stats are a little deceiving. Obviously, you have to look at it. The last 2 outings that Carrasco has been very, very sharp. Obviously, the last 2 outings Carrasco had were really good outings. Definitely a good confidence booster for Carrasco, this pitching staff, and, for the Mets fans as a whole. Carrasco is using his cutter more. He's mixing up his pitches. The fastball is looking good, but his velocity is going up. And that is something that was a concern to start off the season, where we saw his velocity was very, very low, and arguably the lowest in his career. And, I get it. He's old. He's 36. Yeah, he's not going to be as strong as what he used to be. But, it was a concern. But the last 2 outings, he really started to show what he could be. So hopefully he could build off of that. He's going to need to build off of that, or else, it's not going to look good tonight. That's all I can say. So hopefully Carrasco could build off of his last 2 starts, mix his cutter good, throw, borderline strike zone like he's been doing, keep the fastball up, mix up your pitches really well. And if he does that, if he can give me a 6-7 innings, 1 to 3 runs, it's kind of hard 3 runs considering this offense right now, but, just keep the Mets in this ball game. Keep it a safe situation for them, like I say, keep it a safe situation. I don't want him, blowing up this game and, in the 2nd inning, and then it's like, boom, that would suck. And then obviously for the Braves, they will have Bryce Elder. So that is game 1 tonight, getting into game 2. Tomorrow's game, which will also be a 7:20 start. The Mets will have Max Scherzer on the bump, and Scherzer's been looking really good. Scherzer has definitely found his groove, as Scherzer is 5-2 on the season, a 3.21 ERA, 1.09 whip. Like I said, Scherzer had a rough beginning of the season, but his last 4 outings, he is 4-0 and has only given up 3 runs in his last 4 outings. Scherzer is looking good. He's going deep into games. He's keeping his pitch count at an adequate level, in my opinion. He's throwing, mixing up his pitches, fastball, slider, the basic duo. And like I said, doing what he is supposed to do. So if Scherzer can, continue to do what he did in the last 4 games, I think we could expect a decent ball game for the Mets. Like I said, it's not the pitching I'm worried about this series; it's the offense. But who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it'll be the other way around, or maybe none at all. So yeah, Scherzer, obviously expectations. I'd like to see him go 6-7 innings, at least a run or 2 given up at most. Then obviously for the Braves, they will have Charlie Morton, who the Mets have actually have done pretty well against him, in his career. So I guess that is at least one good thing to mention. And then getting into Game 3 and the final game of this 3-game set, which will be Thursday's game, which is a 7:20 start. Also, the Mets will have Justin Verlander on the bump. And obviously, Verlander is really in need of a good start. Obviously, he had a pretty solid start. His last appearance against the Blue Jays, just going to get the job done. Obviously, Verlander, 36 innings. This season, he's pitched 32 hits, 30 strikeouts, 9 walks, 6 homers. So, kind of Verlander, like I said, first inning likes to give up a run, kind of, keep a tight ball game. But then, he's pretty much Cy Young, the 2nd through 5th, 6th, 7th inning. So, we'll see how Verlander goes. Like I said, if he could go out there, pound the strike zone, slider, change up, mix his pitches up really well. We can see a lot of swinging and misses. This is a Braves team that strikes out a lot and hits a lot of home runs, like last year. Big strikeout, big home run. And you have 2 guys, arguably, in this 3-game set who can get a lot of strikeouts in Verlander and Scherzer. And, we've only seen, one outing this year where we've seen double-digit strikeouts, and that was Kodai Senga when he had 12 against the Rays. So I think the Mets could potentially do it. Like I said, we'll see. At the end of the day, if they can keep the ball on the ground, light contact, and you're getting those outs, I don't really care. If it's strikeouts, ground balls, fly balls, whatever it is, just light contact, keep the ball on the ground. Strikeouts are good, in my opinion. So we'll see how that goes. And then obviously for the Braves, they will have Spencer Strider, who's been having a pretty good season. Obviously, the Mets were able to kind of beat up on him last time when they played him at Citi Field back in what was it, April or May. But obviously, he's definitely really recuperated and has been pitching very, very well as of lately. So he is definitely going to be a nice little battle there for the New York Mets to go up against. So, yeah, that is the 3-game set of the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, 3 games today, tomorrow, and then Thursday. Like I said, I think the biggest things going into this series is going to be the offense. Like I said, this is your rotation that you're counting on in Scherzer and Verlander, and then obviously Carrasco. And Carrasco's been pitching decent as of lately. His last 2 starts have been good, but I'm not going to solely bank on Carrasco being back. If Carrasco is a good outing in this Brave series, okay, maybe we could start to, say Carrasco could potentially, be back to his form, but you never know. But yeah, right now, the expectations for this team going into the series are not likely. Obviously, they're projected to not win a single game, which, makes sense. Obviously, I don't really care much for the expectations and projections, but, it is what it is. So we're really going to have to wait and see how this series goes. Like I said, I really think it's going to come down to the offense. It's not going to be the pitching. If your pitching gives up a run, 2, 3, okay, then that's all you ask for. But like I said, your offense needs to score runs. If the offense is going to go out there and, go 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position and constantly, not hit with 2 outs and runners in scoring position, well, then you may as well just throw the white flag because you're not going to win. This team can't rely on 1-0 ball games every time. We need to see fundamental hitting. Take pitches, walk. The key is that this team needs to walk. They need to pass the baton. They need to hit for power. You look at this Braves lineup, they're a team that's heavy in power. They strike out a lot, but they hit home runs. They score runs. They put runs on the board. mean, you saw they had a go-ahead home run in Arizona, Eddie Rosario. Difference between these two teams is the Braves are able to hit home runs and power, and this Mets team has to manufacture runs. That's the difference between these two teams, and that's why I think the Braves are a better team. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It is very, very frustrating. The lineup is out for tonight. Just to quickly go over it, because why not? Obviously, batting first for the New York Mets, center fielder Brandon Nimmo. So Nimmo, obviously, leading off, not a surprise. Batting second, Francisco Lindor, the shortstop. Not big on that. Lindor has not been playing very well, so I'm kind of shocked to see him batting second. But Buck Showalter's, lineups have been more than interesting this year, so it's not even really worth it. Batting third, the left fielder, Jeff McNeil. Batting fourth, cleanup, the first baseman, Pete Alonso. Batting sixth, the DH, Daniel Vogelbach. Or batting fifth. Batting sixth, the right fielder, Starling Marte. Batting seventh, the third baseman, Brett Beatty. Batting eighth, the second baseman, Eduardo Escobar. And batting ninth, the catcher, Omar Narvaez. Obviously, Omar Narvaez is back. He has been reinstated from the IL. So this will be his first appearance back since, I think, the second week of the season, obviously, back in April. Takeaways from this lineup. I mean, Showalter's lineups have been shitty this whole season, so it's not a surprise. I don't like Lindor, too. I do not like Vogelbach behind Alonso. That's horrible protection. And I don't like Escobar batting 8. I know Escobar has been probably one of the best hitters as of the last 2 weeks. Crazy I'm saying that. But I would rather Vogelbach and Escobar switch places. Vogelbach offers, he doesn't swing the bat. If Alonso gets on, then Vogelbach could either walk or strike out on 3 pitches or 4 pitches for a walk. I want a threat behind Alonso, not a guy who's just going to stand and take 3 pitches in Vogelbach. So I don't like this lineup. Once again, I don't like Lindor. I think Lindor should be lower in the order. I don't like Vogelbach behind Pete, and I don't like Escobar so low. But that's been Buck's lineup this whole season. So that's nothing new. We'll see how that goes. But, and obviously the Braves. The Braves have their lineup, of course, too. So let's stop wasting any more time, and let's get into some comments, some questions. I guess essentially anything you guys have, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. But yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. How is everyone doing today? Devin, how are we doing? Lane, how's it going? Gio, Nick, YouTube Productions, Michael, Alex, Ibindos, Captain Morgan, Gio, Alyssa, how's it going? Cal, Trey, I am aware, Lane. I watched the games I saw. Kobe, what's going on? Kobe says, what's up? Happy they took care of business against the Phillies. Sadly, the Blue Jays didn't go as hoped. Yeah, I mean, it like I said, obviously, you went out there and you did what you originally needed to do and take care of the Phillies. The Mets have historically, well, not historically, but the last 2 years have essentially owned the Phillies. And like I said, the Phillies have their own problems. Their own problems. They have definitely been struggling a lot. I think the Phillies, in my opinion, I would say the Phillies have more struggles and more to worry about than the Mets. At least the Mets shown potential at this season where the Phillies have not. But obviously, I'm not trying to compare the two teams. Yeah, the Blue Jays series was just a shitty series overall. They didn't hit, and that's simple. The pitching was fine. Verlander looked good. McGill looked good. The bullpen looked good. Everyone was, Rayleigh, Ottavino. Everyone was fine. It's just you can't win ball games if you don't score a run. That's simple. There's no tie. So, yeah. That is the ultimate issue, is this team does not score any fucking runs. And you need to score runs, you don't end a tie. It's not football. It doesn't work like that. So it's make or break is offense. You can have the best pitching staff out there and, pitch a no-hitter. So, well, not really, but you can have the best pitcher out there and only give up a run. You could still manage to lose. Lane says, do you fire Buck Showalter? Yeah, I mean, I would argue Buck Showalter is on the hot seat right now. I mean, if you look at really, Buck Showalter is a guy that I think has been very respected. And, Buck is a guy who, obviously, everyone loved him last year. He won Manager of the Year. And, I mean, he was a guy who, managed a winning ball club last year. And obviously now you're not seeing the same or similar results. Looking at Buck, I think the biggest thing last year, I think the biggest thing this year compared to last year is this year he took a big step back originally, because I think he realized that there was so much success last year that maybe he didn't need to be so involved with certain things, certain players, certain positions, whatever. And I think he made that mistake. And I just think, listen, when it comes to Buck, the bullpen management, that's nothing new. I think it has gotten worse, but the bullpen management, he's always been shit at. Go back to Baltimore, go back, that's nothing new. The sense of urgency for pulling his starting pitchers, nothing new. My issue with Buck right now is he's showing no sense of urgency and no accountability. You see his you see his post-game press conferences, and they're a joke. He sits there and he gives these bullshit excuses that I don't think anybody believes. And, the lineups, I don't know if it's the analytical staff. I don't know who's making these lineups, but they have not been good. They've been horrible this whole season. So many questions with the lineup. But I think the issue with Buck is, keep in mind, Gabe Kapler in 2021 won 100 and something games with the Giants. Is he an elite manager? He's not doing too well now. Giants fans are screaming for his head off and to get out of San Francisco. And I'm not crazy about Buck. I think the thing, if you look at Buck Showalter, is he's a guy who has been in this, has been in Major League Baseball for a while now. He's been a manager for 20 plus years. And I think he's been grandfathered into the game. And I think Cohen has a lot of respect for him, and I think he would want to fire him last out of anyone on the coaching staff because he has a lot of respect for him. But, obviously the game has evolved a lot. The game's changed a lot. And, I don't think Buck Showalter has the same confidence and same attitude as last year. He needs to fire up his players and hype everyone up, and he doesn't. Cal says, I'm happy that Pete Alonso is making Mets and MLB history. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's at least one good thing this season, I'd be, for Pete Alonso to make some history, Man, it's definitely possible. I mean, people ask, could Alonso get 60, 61, 62? Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. Obviously we saw it last year with Judge. Alonso has more home runs, right now than what he did this time in 2019 or, 2022, of course. But, I absolutely think there's a reasonable chance that Pete Alonso can hit 55, 60. Heck, I can, even 62, 63. Keep in mind, it was Alonso that, broke Aaron Judge's home run rookie record. So maybe he likes chasing Judge for his records. You never know. But, yeah, I think that'd be awesome. Wayne says, do you DFA Vogelbach now for the Mets? I mean, I don't think you are because then, who else are you going to replace him with? It's not like, and originally I really, a lot of people thought that the Mets were going to DFA Vogelbach instead of Nito. And then that way they could have made Alvarez the DH and Narvaez and Nito caught. But I'm guessing they just figured that Nito was just too much of a liability, too much of a risk, really just going out there most of the time. So as of right now, if you had asked me 2-3 days ago when you had Nito on the roster, sure. But when it comes down to it, Lane right now is you have no one to replace him with. And I'm not giving Tommy Pham the everyday starts. I don't care what people say about Tommy Pham. I don't care about the one game he had against the Blue Jays. He's not a consistent hitter, and he's had, 3 good games this year? That doesn't determine anything. Haley says everyone is at fault. Buck is lost and can't make a lineup or manage a bullpen. Epler screwed the roster. Cohen created all the hype, and the players can't do anything. Yeah, essentially. Everyone's responsible. Everyone should be held accountable, and everyone's responsible. Everyone from Cohen all the way down to, I don't know, the most useless guy on the roster. Probably Vogelbach. Everyone is accountable. And I agree with you, Haley. I think everyone likes to go for a scapegoat. But realistically, you ask me my main contributors to why this team is playing bad. I think Epler. I think it stems from Epler. Obviously, he created this roster. He manufactured it. He was the one that didn't go out this offseason and acquired no offensive acquisitions. Brought in the same lineup as last year. Where, I don't know, you look at a team like the Braves. They acquired Sean Murphy, and how's Sean Murphy doing for them? Could have easily went out there and acquired JD Martinez, but his back's a concern, and look how he's doing in LA right now. He has like 10 home runs, a 870 OPS. I mean, I think this Mets lineup would definitely be in need of that right now. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Buck's the day-to-day guy, so yeah, he's going to get the blame. But also, it's the players. When Lindor's going 0 for 4 and striking out 3 times, yeah. When Alonso's getting jammed and hitting like 5 fly balls in a game, yeah. When Vogelbach stares at 3 pitches down the dick, yeah, it's everyone's fault. It's not like a specific call or a bullpen or Trace is one with the last baby Matt joined. Mauricio, yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now it kind of comes to the point where Mauricio's playing very well in AAA. Do I think he's ready for the major league hitting? I don't quite think he is ready for the MLB pitching. I question how he would acclimate to it. But I think if you look at it right now, Ronnie Mauricio, let him continue to play down in AAA. Let him get the experience, because you see it with Mark Vientos right now. Mark Vientos is still a guy, in my opinion, who needs to develop. And right now, he is sitting on the bench rotting. He is starting 2 games a week at the DH spot, and then maybe once a week comes in the 8th inning to DH or pitch hit. You know what I mean? And when it comes to Vientos right now, send him down. Because what's the point of keeping him on the roster, keeping him, preventing him from developing and getting the at-bats which he needs, to have him play 2 games a week and then, what's the point? If you're going to start Vogelbach and Pham and, the 2 other, the 2 idiots, then what's the point? Send Vientos down. I'd rather him sit in AAA, get the consistent playing time, play every day, or at least, 6 out of the 7 days a week, and develop. You can't develop if you're playing twice a week. It doesn't work like that. And he's a DH, so it's not like he's doing, anything defensively too, of course. So, yeah, I mean, it is very frustrating. And that's why I say, there's no point in calling up, Mauricio if that's going to be the same case. So, yeah, I mean, we're really just going to have to see how it goes for them. Like I said, the lineups have been horrible. I mean, horrible, and there's no defending it. Do you call up? I want to say you're trying to say Calvin Ziegler. No, because he's only in low A and he's like 19. Gregory, what's going on? Cal says, what's the Mets' biggest concern right now? I mean, where to start? I would say right now it's just this team is inconsistent, and I know that's a dumb response, but this team is the definition of inconsistent. You'll have a game where your pitching's dominant, your pitching's on fire. 7 innings, no runs, a shutout. And but then your lineup's crap. And then you'll go another outing where your pitching's crappy, and then your offense is booming. It's high, it's doing great. So this team just can't stay hot at the right time. And when people were telling me, oh, it's the pitching, oh no, it's the offense, it's both. Because if you're that inconsistent, you have an issue. If the Mets are going out there and scoring, if the Mets pitching staff can go out there and give you a quality start, great. But you need an offense to win. You need runs to score in baseball. Like I said, there's no tie. You need to score runs in baseball. That's how it works. It's baseball for dummies right there. And this Mets team doesn't quite comprehend that. Oh, Lane, I am very sorry you had to witness that. But no, hopefully you had a good time at the ballpark. Regardless the outcome of the game, I think it's always fun to go out there and enjoy a good day or evening at the ballpark. Timothy, what's going on? I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you tuning in. Ryan says Firebug. Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, he's definitely on the hot seat. You know, like I said, would you rather lose with Buck, or would you rather, lose with someone else that is doing nothing? So, yeah, I mean, it's by far been a very, very, very last, couple frustrating weeks with Showalter. And, when it comes to him, I mean, it comes to the point where, how much is there he could do? But I think the biggest thing with Buck is these lineups. And no one's clicking together. And, when you see Buck, the Sunday lineup, you saw him bat Pham leadoff. You see him, put Escobar 9, Volge behind Alonso. And, your question is this Buck Showalter throwing these bullshit lineups out to get the attention of Billy Epler and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to mix everyone, but there's nothing I could do. I need more pieces. And obviously, that's a result because Billy Epler was incompetent and he was an idiot this offseason and didn't, same lineup as last year. And, when it comes down to this lineup last year, I know everyone's like, oh, this is a really good offense. They'll come back. Look at them last year. And, I said it on my last stream and, a decent amount of people disagreed, but I'm going to say it again. I think the big reason that this offense succeeded last year was because a lot of players had career years or played above average in certain categories. I mean, obviously, not much the pitching. I mean, pitching Diaz had the best year of his career, no doubt. But you look at it, the offense, guys like Canna, they got on base a lot more. I mean, they hit by pitch the most, which is pretty funny, but he got on base a lot more. His OBP, OPS, and average were the second highest in his career. Marte, above average in certain categories, not stolen bases, but it is what it is. McNeil, obviously, had one of the best years of his career. Short career, but still won the batting title. Was an on-base percentage merchant. I mean, Alonso played to expectations, the 40 home runs, all-star, 270 average, 960 OPS. That's what's expected. So he played fine. I mean, I say Lindor having a career year within 770 OPS, but I mean, the power metrics were there for him. He was driving in runs. So when it comes down to it, is a lot of guys played better in certain categories last year. And I really do feel that is why the Mets played well last year. And I think a lot of people knew that there's no way that we're going to get the same exact results and the same exact lineup from last year. That's just not going to be the case. It's not going to work. You're not going to get the same exact results from certain guys. Plenty of guys, have, whether it's a sophomore slump, whether it's a change of approach, a slow start, slumps, it happens. And that's the issue, is Epler booked way too much on the success of last year and said, hey, it'll carry over. I think your hitters in Alonso and Nimmo and McNeil and Lindor, I think they're fine. And obviously, now you have Alvarez brought up and Beatty and Vientos, but, why would you still ride, internal at the DH role? The Mets had an opportunity to go out there and sign a DH, but they said, no, we're going to play it internal. We're going to have, Vogelbach, who doesn't swing at a pitch, be our DH. And can, the most useless player in baseball, I say. But, it's frustrating. Explosive, what's going on? He says, the Texas Rangers are the 2021 Giants and 2022 Mets. Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy that they're doing this without DeGrom. Obviously, Jacob DeGrom hasn't pitched since April 28th. So pretty much what I said what was going to happen, happened. He's going to pitch in April, great, and then he'll go on the IL and not pitch for like 2-3 months to the rest of the season. And that's what we're seeing. So I feel bad, obviously. I know he's not a Met, but I still want him to do the best. And, yeah, Amish, I agree. I think Tommy John may need to happen. And, it makes you think. I mean, Sandy Alderson a couple years ago said he had that partially torn UCL, and DeGrom kind of threw him under the bus and was like, "No, I don't. What is he talking about? He shouldn't say that." But maybe Sandy Alderson was right after all, and I probably should have gotten the Tommy John, because let's be real, if he got in 2021, he would have been back on the field right now. But there's 1,000 issues: his elbow, He has everything. Arm tightness, forearm tightness. He has everything. He has an ingrown hair. He's on the IL. Like, you kidding? So he's been very, very, very. Wow. Jacob deGrom will go undergo Tommy John surgery. Wow. Well, you guys just witnessed my reaction to that. 45-30. Someone stamped that. Jeez. Wow. Yeah, and Amish, I just saw your comment in the chat now too. Yeah, Evan Grant, Jacob deGrom will undergo Tommy John surgery to repair a tear in his UCL. Story forthcoming. And you know what? I mean, listen. I think this is the best thing that Jake could have done. This is something that he should have done a long time ago. He should have done it in 2021, right when Sandy Alderson said it. And then he declined it. He should have done it then. Because at least he would have missed last year, but he would have been back for this year. But, now he's getting older. He's not getting any younger. So, yeah, I mean, that's crazy. That's sad. I know he's not a Met, but, he's obviously a very, very historic Met. Did a lot for this ball club. So, wow, that's really sad, though. Wow. It's the best thing it's the best thing he could have done, deGrom. The Mets play Pittsburgh. That is true. That's a good question. Trey says hardest MLB record to break. Cal Ripken Jr. playing 2,632 consecutive games, or Joe DiMaggio 56 hit game streak. Being honest, I think it's probably the Ripken record. Just because in today's game, I just think that there's someone that's just going to come out easily, 56 hit game. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys. I mean, guys like Nimmo have had like 35 at one point. I could see a guy like Luis Arias doing something like that. I think the game streak is just so impossible just because it was 30, 40 years ago. But just the game has evolved so much now when it comes to health and fitness and not running them out there every day and, injuring them. So I think that's going to be the deterrent of the Ripken record. So I think the hardest is probably going to be the Ripken record. Mets play the Yankees next week. Yeah, no, it'll be a cool Subway Series. They're probably going to lose, but whatever. We need to relax as fans. You need to know there is little we could do. The bats are just cold and the pitching is old. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's what happens when Billy Epler invested in such an old veteran rotation. And, it's not even the pitching. The pitching is doing well. It's just this, they're so inconsistent. And, I guarantee, if the team scored 4 runs in each game, they would have won them all. But, they can't fucking hit in certain, in half their situations. They just forget how to hit. So, biggest strength and biggest weakness for this team. Biggest strength is their defense. No, I'll give them the defense. They do have they do have good defense. I will give the Mets that. They do have very good defense. Lindor is very good defensively. McNeil's very good defensively. Beatty's been very decent defensively so far. Nimmo is a Gold Glove contender. Alonso's been very good defensively. Francisco Alvarez. So that is realistic. I think the Mets are a very good defensive team. That's their strength. Their weakness is just they're inconsistent. Ghost Fork, yes. Will the Mets overcome their struggles this year, Hayden? Timothy, I mean, it's the $1 million question, it seems. I mean, you could look at teams in the past who have had an unfortunate starts. A year ago today, the Atlanta Braves were a game over 500. And, I mean, look what happened. They got hot. Same can go with the Phillies. They were like 6 games under 500. Everyone was, saying, oh, my God, their season's over. And look what happened. They got hot. Look at the 2019 Nationals. They started off, 19-30 in mid-May. And look what happened. They won the World Series. And that's why it's a 162-game season. And, one thing you can make the argument with the Mets, and I was speaking with someone about it, was, the Mets are a team that have historically always done great in the first half and then choked in the second half or, had a slump in the second half. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they'll have a slow first half and do well in the second half. I mean, it happened in 2019. But I don't necessarily know how much I buy into that because every game counts. And I know the NL isn't as great this year. There's a lot of mid teams. The Cardinals aren't doing great. A lot of 500 ball clubs. But if that's the case, I don't want to be fighting for a last place wild card spot. So we'll see how that goes. Nice Expos hat. I appreciate it, Devin. Explosive says that's crazy to think Duda had the most home runs in Citi Field leading up to Pete taking it from him. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and I it's crazy to think that it was Lucas Duda. Obviously, he's a lefty, right field wall at Citi Field. It's pretty decent. Had a nice smooth swing. But yeah, Duda was a Met for a decent amount of time, so I could definitely see why. Had a good power surge, but obviously Alonso's better. Yeah, Francisco Lindor. Thoughts on Francisco Lindor and are you concerned, says Cal. Yeah, I mean, Lindor is a very interesting ball player. Do I want to get into this? We'll briefly touch on it. So, yeah, Lindor is not having a good season. That's obvious. I mean, yeah, the home runs, the RBIs in there. He has 10 home runs, 40 RBIs. If you look at that, you'd say he's having a good season. But then you look at the average, you look at the OBP, you look at the OPS, you look at the WOBA, you look at every other statistic, and it's below average. He's striking out at a historic high. And, what we've been seeing from Lindor is why does he even bat from the left-hand side anymore? I mean, the numbers from him batting as a lefty to a righty, I mean, he's so much better as a right-handed hitter, and I wonder why. And his swing is so much nicer, so much cleaner as a righty. Why are you batting as a lefty? Like, it looks so ugly, his swing as a lefty. I hate to say it, but he swings and his knees in the dirt, and he's swinging for the fences. I really like him as a righty. He should bat more as a righty. But yeah, I mean, really with Lindor this season, it's home run, strikeout, or shitty ground ball to the second baseman. And, with Lindor, obviously the fans are not happy. He's getting booed. Understandable. He's not putting up any results. And, he's a big asset to this lineup for them to be successful. And this is the team that heavily relies on Lindor and Alonso to provide the offense. Like I said, this team manufactures runs. And manufacturing runs, the small ball approach, does not work in 2023 baseball. I'm sorry, it does not work. 50 years ago, yeah, the Mets would have been probably the best freaking team out there with their small ball approach and slap the ball. But it doesn't work today. You cannot rely on McNeil and Nimmo and Marte to get on base and then for Lindor and Alonso to drive them in. It doesn't work like that. You need power and you need a contribute and you need, contributions from at least your 1 through 7, 1 through 9. Too many table setters in this lineup. Too many pass the batons. No, you need power. Power. It's what you need in baseball. What's going on, Mark? Seth says, Carrasco cookie. Yes, sir. Yeah, Captain, you could tell Lindor's not happy with himself. I mean, even in 2021 when he played bad, which, I mean, he's worse this year. You saw, at least in 2021, he'd still smile, he'd laugh, he'd make jokes. He just sits there and he's like, he doesn't smile. He looks very upset with himself, and good. Let him fire himself up. Haley says, does David Wright have an actual path to the Hall of Fame? Not sure when he's eligible, or will he just be remembered as a Mets great? I think there's a possibility he could be a Hall of Famer. Like I said, it's unfortunate his career got a little postponed and interrupted because of injury, which, it sucks. But I think if you look at it, I think there's a possibility that he could potentially, I think, be a Hall of Famer, second, third ballot. I think he'll be a Mets Hall of Famer, no doubt. Number will be retired, no doubt. Let me know. I don't know about that, but I definitely think he should be much lower in the order. Trey says, the fact that we still have been hugely underperforming and are still 500 makes me excited for when we eventually do step on the gas and start winning consistently. And, that's a good point, Trey. The fact is, if you showed me, the Mets numbers offensively and pitching, and asked me to guess what their record is, I would say they're in like last place. But no, the fact that they're 500 playing as shitty as they are is really something else. But a lot of talent. Yeah, so we'll see. Blake, what's going on, man? Good to see you tuning in. It's game day. It is game day. He says Blue Jays swept the Braves too. LOL. They should win the NL East. Yeah, they should. I don't know. I don't know when if they play the Phillies. Well, yeah, they play everyone now, but I don't know what we'll see what they do against the Phillies and Marlins. Alex says the season has been very frustrating. Hopefully, the end of the season is a happy one. Yeah, I mean that is the goal. Like I said, it's a 162 game season for a reason. Captain Morgan, sorry, Captain Morgan says Mets have a lot of issues, and Buck Showalter can't even come close to finding it on his own. But too often this season, he's made things worse. He's supposed to be an elite in-game. Yeah, and you know what? I've noticed that his in-game decisions have been very, I don't know, head-scratching. I mean, yeah, a lot of interesting decisions in games. And yeah, another thing is Buck cannot be platooning Beatty. I mean, I wish I can get that tattooed on my chest. What's going on? I cannot pronounce the name. I apologize. But what's going on? He says Buck isn't the issue. Hitting coach isn't helping the hitter. Could be too much information for the hitter. And, you know, I agree with you on that. I think last year, and that's one thing that Eric Chavez said a lot last year is, and guys like McNeil, guys like Nimmo don't like the analytics. They like to go in and know what they can do. And I agree. And I think that is when the analytics, and that's when I can become a little anti-analytic, is when the analytics are being shoved in these guys' faces. You know, oh, you have an xWOBA, you have an expected batting average, an average, an OPS against this guy in this situation at this, record at this time. I feel then it can get a little much. And I think that is when it needs to calm down. And I feel guys like McNeil and Nimmo play best when they just go out there without all this information being thrown at them. I agree with you. I think it is too much information. And Eric Chavez did say that last year. Blake says whoever wins the game tonight, Elder versus Carrasco, will probably win the series. The Verlander Scherzer starts will be a split. Being honest, I projected that the Mets got swept or get swept. AKA Slayer, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. Trey says, I'm sure it's tiresome for people to see tons of Mets fans complaining about the lineup every day, but it's tiresome to see the lineups are being put out. Yeah, these lineups are a joke. Daniel Vogelbach has 3 hits in his last 29 at-bats, has 1 homer since April 17th, and is not in the lineup. But it's not only in the lineup, but moved up 5th. $1 million question. Epler is very bad at helping this roster. When Diaz went down, same as last year, they didn't help at the trade deadline. Yeah, I mean, when Diaz went down, they didn't do anything. They just pretty much said, all right, Robertson, you're the closer. Ottavino, move up. Rayleigh, move up. You should have went out there and made moves. The fact is that there's so many relievers that went out there who are having decent years. Guys like Andrew Chafin went to Arizona for a year, $6 million. Are you telling me that Billy Epler could have not done that? And look at other former relievers. Colin Holderman, the Mets traded him for Vogelbach. Holderman's pitching his ass off in Pittsburgh and is having a great season. And Miguel Castro. I say what you want about the Braves series, but Miguel Castro's been having a great season. And you could say, oh, well, Castro wasn't great as a Met, his command. Okay. So maybe the Mets couldn't see something in him. So maybe they should fire Jeremy Hefner because he didn't see any potential in him, but the D-backs are. Just saying. But I agree with you, yeah. Epler is not helping this roster. Amish says the Mets take it 2 or 3. Possibly. We'll see. How many managers the Mets going to run out there, though? Well, the thing is, I mean, obviously, okay, so you go back to what, 2019. You had Callaway. And obviously you fired Callaway. You went to Rojas. And I think it came to Luis Rojas. I think everyone knew he was this interim manager. He wasn't the long-term guy. You had him 2020, had him 2021. And then you went to Buck. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, you've had 3 managers, 4 you had Callaway, Rojas, and then Buck. So yeah, 3 managers since 2019. If you want to say Beltran, sure. But I mean, Beltran, that wasn't really anything that they could have done. It was just kind of, he became a manager, and then the worst news kind of came out at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. There's not a lot of good managers out there, I feel. I feel like if you look at baseball now, it's not what it used to be, the manager position. It's not like you're Bobby Valentine. The manager position has really changed a lot in the last, 15 years. It's changed a lot. And there's only a few managers out there who I like. I like Dave Roberts. I like Craig Counsell, but there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of managers out there who I guess are there. So we'll see. Amish says he needs to stop switch hitting almost every day. Roll out of something consistent. Yeah, I'm assuming you are probably talking about Lindor. And then that is the thing. Lindor needs to stay from one side of the plate because him as a lefty, he looks so bad. Seth says, for God's sake, stick with Vientos at DH. He'll give you 25 homers. What is there to think about? Nothing. And I agree. I mean, why are you letting this dude rot on the bench? It's very frustrating. Oh, come on. So there's an interesting clause in the DeGrom contract that I'll say in a minute. Yeah, I saw, obviously. Yeah, DeGrom, Tommy John. I did. You will get to see my reaction. If you guys go to 45 minutes in the stream, you'll see my reaction. Yeah, I mean, it's sad. And, like I said, when it comes down to DeGrom, getting Tommy John, I think it's the best move. It's a move that he should have done a long time ago. And like we said, Sandy Alderson, was it 2021, 2020, came out and said that he had a partially torn UCL, and DeGrom went out and said, oh, he threw me under the bus. That's not true. When it was true. And he just didn't want to get it. And I feel ever since then, Alderson and the Mets kind of, said something that he should get Tommy John, and he didn't want to. And, I think it's sad. It's unfortunate, but I think it is, it's the best move. It is the best move. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It happens. But one little clause that was in the DeGrom contract, give me one more minute to find it. That I saw was posted. So there's an interesting clause in the DeGrom contract with the Rangers, and the contract reportedly has a conditional option that comes into play if he goes Tommy John surgery or any type of right elbow surgery throughout the 2023 to 2026 season that keeps him on the injured list for 130 days. If this happens, he'll bound to the contract for another year, pushing his contract to worth $222 million. It was certainly a risky signing for the Rangers, but they likely saw the benefits to outweigh the negatives of what could happen. So, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting clause there. But, yeah, I mean, like I said, it sucks that DeGrom is getting the Tommy John. I mean, I think if anything, he should have got it, in 2021. Now he's 2 years older. He's going to be 3-4 years older. It's unfortunate. I feel bad for DeGrom. Not even as a Met fan, but, as a baseball fan. I mean, he's a great pitcher. And when he's on the mound, he's great, but it's just he can't stay on the mound. And, that's why it came down to it where the Mets were hesitant on re-signing him, and the Mets were willing to re-sign him. The Mets and Epler gave him an offer, but DeGrom looked at their offer and then went to Texas and never returned the Mets' call, essentially. And the reason the Mets didn't want to give him as much money is because, I mean, would you, for a guy who hasn't went out and pitched every fifth game since, 2019? Would you? No. So, yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate. Thoughts and prayers to DeGrom, and hopefully he could recover. Yeah, I know. I called it. I mean, I literally said, like, before the season, Blake, and on these streams constantly, I said that, watch DeGrom go out there, pitch great in April, and then come in May, he'll be on the IL, and They just keep filibustering it, and that's it. Blake's has started 23 and 27, 10.5 games back June 1st. Yeah. So, anything could happen. I guess it goes to show you. Yeah, Hector, it's crazy. It's very unfortunate. I concur. Yeah, and that is the thing. Yeah, the NL was supposed to be better. I mean, obviously going in, it was supposed to be a really cat and dog race with the NL East, with the Mets, with the Braves, with the Phillies, Marlins being pesky, of course. The Central was supposed to be interesting with the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Cubs. No one expected the Pirates to do what they're doing. Obviously, the NL West, Dodgers, Padres. Padres are not playing well. So, yeah, it really was supposed to be very interesting. So, yeah, I mean, we will see. There's plenty of more games to come. Can the Mets win? Well, that's a great question. I don't have the confidence. Hopefully. Well, I don't think the Mets are going to be signing Correa. I don't think they're going to get Martinez because I don't see why the Dodgers would trade them. Blue Jays split their first series with Philly last month. They play again. Oh, okay. So, not bad. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. What's going on? He says we really dodged a bullet with DeGrom. Yeah. No, I mean, the Mets got lucky. And I remember a lot of people saying, oh, Mets, they lost him. Well, it's a blessing in disguise. Imagine if the Mets had DeGrom now and he was getting Tommy John with how the season's going. We get freaking burned down Citi Field of fans. Are you kidding me? LFGM, absolutely. Blake says, I'm anti-analytical on the fact that the games aren't played. And I agree. And that, obviously I'm very big on the money ball, the analytics, but that is the one thing is you're when it comes to teams on paper, yeah, the Mets on paper are supposed to be a good team, but they're not getting the results. And obviously baseball is a result-oriented game. I was considering Beltran. Yeah, Beltran's a good guy. I mean, he's doing something with the Mets organization now. So we shall see how that goes. Talking Mets with Rob. What is going on? He says, guess Cohen and Epler were right, signing that 40-year-old JV over the 34-year-old broken down DeGrom. Yeah, I mean, essentially, as crazy as this is. So, yeah, Trey, it's sad. I feel very bad. It sucks. Sports fan says DeGrom, and and someone said that to me like a couple weeks ago. That's funny you bring that up. But yeah. But otherwise, everyone, I think we're probably gonna call it a stream. I do have to take care of a couple things. Gotta head off. But I really do appreciate everyone for tuning into today's stream. As always, it was a great stream. As always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Obviously, Mets, Atlanta Braves tonight, 7:20 Eastern Standard Time. Be nice if the Mets took at least one of three, but I'm not very confident with this team right now, obviously. Not a whole lot to be confident. There's not a lot of expectations with the Mets. The Braves are a much better team right now, and who knows? Maybe, they'll come back to slap me in the face, but I mean, I see them getting swept. I see the Braves pulling out the brooms, but who knows? You never know. So we'll see how that goes. I know it's been rough, been over the last couple of months for the Mets, but it's a long season. It's a 60-game season, and that's why it is. It's not a 30-game season. It's not a 60-game season. It's a 162-game season, and that's why it is. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully the Mets can turn it around. Will they? Well, you're going to need to. And can they do it in time? So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping they can try and figure their stuff out. Overall, figure it out. That's really all I say. But, yeah, otherwise, I appreciate everybody for tuning into today's stream. As always, please, everyone, smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, tell your friends about this channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're rewatching this on replay, thank you for tuning in. Obviously, it was a great stream. And, yeah, that's really all I got. LFGM, Mets, Braves tonight. Don't get swept, please. yeah, otherwise, let's go Mets, baby. Let's ride. Till next time, baseball fans. See ya.